Hello, this is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer.
Welcome home.
Soar into tower. We are ready for takeoff.
Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey, it's Amy from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey Clubbers, it's Scott from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, it's Kathleen from DVC Clubhouse.
Welcome aboard. It's Phil from DVC Clubhouse.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Debrief podcast brought to you by DVC Clubhouse. This is Amy, and I've got Scott, Kathleen, and Phil with me as always. Hello, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi guys.
Welcome aboard, guys.
So, you just said the news. So, today is, what is today, Monday? Is today Monday?
Yep.
It is Monday. Today was like a really Monday for me. Like, it was
Yes.
just really long and just, I don't know. This is the Monday after the D23 big news that came out on, what day was that? Saturday?
Saturday
Yeah,
night.
on Saturday night. So figured we'd have a little conversation about all of the things, if we're excited about any of them, what we're excited about. I don't know that Phil has much excitement for anything.
I think that's unfair. I think there were a lot of great announcements. I think there's a lot of amazing things coming. I just am disgusted by how they're being implemented.
So we can dive into that a little bit. I stayed up and watched it, and before we get into any of the changes, I'm sure that for the people who were there watching it in that stadium live, it was probably amazing. But for those of us on the East Coast who started watching it at 11:30 at night or whatever time it was,
On Fortnite, no less. Can we just give that a little bit of side eye?
yeah. Well, and I mean, I think Fortnite was like super overwhelmed. Like there were people that couldn't get in. I think that was I don't know if that was like a resounding success, but I was grateful because there was somebody who was live streaming it on YouTube from the location, from the event. So I ended up watching it on that. But I just need to talk a little bit about like how much music there was. Josh Tomorrow made an announcement like when he came out and he talked about, that there would be some big announcements and they were going to tell them through our favorite Disney songs. There were so many songs and some of them like didn't sound great. There were a lot of comments, I could see in the chat of the live stream that people were just like, all right, let's get on with this. It just took forever. Like if they had just done this presentation without all of this live music, like they probably could have been done in about 45 minutes. But they had all of these musical acts and it just, again, for those of us on the East Coast who just wanted to go to bed, I was like, all right, I don't need Megan Trainor singing Feed the Birds. I know that that's like an emotional song for many people, but I was like, all right, this is for the birds. Can we please get on with it?
It all felt like a sleight of hand. Like, just pay attention to the music. Just the music. We've got some announcements, but let's puff it up with lots of music.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess like my age is showing because there were some people that were on stage. I just didn't know who they were and why I should be excited about them. So that might have been part of it. I was like, I'm too old for this. I don't know these people on stage, and it's way past my bedtime. But I think I managed to like capture. I made a list of all of the things that they announced. So I think that I was, despite feeling tired and a little bored, I think I was able to capture all of the things. I think one thing that I forgot to list was something about like one of the the Moana show on one of the cruise ships, but that's kind of neither here nor there. So why don't we get into it?
Yep.
Let's go.
Let's do this thing.
Well, I don't think there's any secret based on my comments today where I stand on all of this. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, well, before we get into like the Disney World stuff where I think, we are all more emotionally invested than the other things. let's just quickly just give a nod to the things that they announced that are happening elsewhere. So they announced that they are bringing new Avatar land to Disneyland based on the new films, the Way of Water that already came out, and the upcoming Fire and Ash, and then implied that there are going to be even more Avatar movies coming out after Fire and Ash. They're bringing a Coco attraction, a boat ride to Disney's California Adventure in 2026. New nighttime shows coming to Tokyo Disneyland and Disneyland Paris. World of Frozen coming to Disneyland Paris. And a new Lion King attraction that looks very much like Splash Mountain and Tiana's Bayou Adventure, but just themed to the Lion King. The new show in the Main Street Opera House at Disneyland featuring the first ever animatronic of Walt Disney, which I think is pretty cool. It's called A Magical Life. That's something that I would definitely, but I mean, I wouldn't make a special trip out there just to see that, but I would definitely look forward to seeing it the next time I would be there. And I think everything else really. Well, they announced that they're adding 4 more ships to Disney Cruise Line, making the total number by the year 2031 13 ships in the fleet. And the Avengers campus in Disney's California Adventure is getting 2 new attractions. Hong Kong Disneyland is getting an Avengers attraction. Spider-Man coming to Shanghai Disneyland. And then I think the rest is all Walt Disney World news that we can dig into. But do you guys have any thoughts or anything on those locations or the announcements that were made for those locations?
Who cares? Move on to the important stuff.
So no, nobody cares about them. Okay, so
I really don't know.
I will say that my sister-in-law, who is a Disneyland, I don't know what they call their annual passes over there, but
like
had
a magic key
the
holder.
Magic Key. They've had annual passes over there for 30 years. She is grossly underwhelmed by the whole Avatar and Disneyland announcements. I think she's almost as upset about that as I am about Frontierland.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't really have any sort of emotional investment to what they do to those parks over there because I go so infrequently. So, and it all kind of feels new to me. So,
That might change for me. As I told Christy today, if they do what they're planning to do in the Magic Kingdom, I may transfer all my points over to Grand Californian and become a once every 2-year Disneyland visitor.
You salty old man. You don't even mean that. Not even
Actually,
close.
Actually,
No
I
way.
do. I had a conversation with Emily today and said we need to start looking at our points, and I started prepping the kids for if this changes, we may start vacationing elsewhere.
What'd they say about that?
I explained the Frontierland changes to Luke, and he said, "Why would they do that?"
so are you saying we need to find a new podcast co-host and producer?
It may go that way. We'll see.
All right. So the first announcement that they made about about Disney World is, and it was something, Phil, that you had mentioned recently in, I don't remember which episode we did, but we were talking about things, I think things that we want them to do or something, and it was a nighttime parade coming back to Magic Kingdom.
All for it.
Yeah. I mean the concept art, it was only 2 pictures, but it got me excited. I do think you brought it up on whatever episode that was, that it just, there's like been a huge void in the nighttime parade space for Magic Kingdom, and it's so awesome. Like, it's like, Kathleen, have you ever seen a nighttime parade at Magic
I
Kingdom?
have not. Nope.
It does an amazing job of continuity for the nights at Walt Disney World, especially Magic Kingdom. You go now from nonstop rides and, you go get some dinner and people start camping out on Main Street. And there's this lull, this long pause between when the sun goes down and when the fireworks finally go off. And then after the fireworks, there's that mad rush for the exit. The nighttime parades were such a great way to ease that transition from one to the other. It kept people moving through the parks. There was excitement. It was absolutely beautiful to witness. I think that has been, for those of us that spent years watching those, that has been sorely missed for nighttime entertainment.
Was that before the fireworks or after?
Well, there's always been, you mean prior to or after? I think it depended on, if I recall correctly, what time the park was closing and what they were doing for fireworks. If I recall correctly, Amy, wasn't the parade a set time and then the fireworks would vary based on the park closures back when they had long hours?
That's what I recall, but it's been a long time, so I could be remembering incorrectly.
Yeah, I feel like Main Street Electrical Parade was always like a 9 o'clock show. And remember, this is back when, especially during the summer and busy times, they would go until midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. They would hold the fireworks based on the closing time. But I seem to recall, I'll have to look back at old spreadsheets. I seem to recall the parade time being a set time.
Yeah, oh, it was definitely a set time, and I just remember that, there were nights where we would follow the parade out, like, we would follow it down Main Street and then exit the park. Like, that was the way that sometimes that would be how we ended our night instead of fireworks. We would just follow that parade down Main Street and then exit. Which also, just from a leaving the park standpoint, I do think that it does give, like, rather than one mass exodus after fireworks, I do think that there are people who will, like, choose to leave after the parade or after fireworks. So it might break up some of, like, the mass exodus crowds all at one time. Like, hopefully that's a benefit.
I agree. That's what we did. We would watch the parade, when Luke was very, very little, his first trip. We watched the parade and then left the park, and you could see the fireworks from elsewhere, but that was a good way to end off the night without going the distance.
And it's just so pretty. Like, seeing everything lit up coming down Main Street USA. It's like, from my first trip, I remember that was like one of the things that was just felt so magical. And, like, I think kids just love it. Like, it's just so, it is. It's just magical. I hate to, like, keep using that word, but that's how it feels.
Back that far, was that Spectro Magic? Was that your original experience?
Yeah, it was Spectral Magic.
Yeah, I remember Main Street Electrical Parade to Spectro Magic, back to Main Street Electrical Parade. So, I mean, there's a lot of history there.
Yeah, for sure. So the next announcement was a pretty big one, and it was the Animal Kingdom announcement, where, I mean, it wasn't like a huge shock because they kind of hinted at it last year at D23 as a blue sky project. But, at the opening of this panel, Josh Damaro said everything is in active development. Like, dirt has started to be moved in a lot of these places. So sounds like these things are going to be happening. So this was the announcement that Dino Land USA will, in fact, be turned into Tropical Americas, which I don't love that name, and I hope that the way that we refer to, like, Africa as Harambe, I hope that the Pueblo Esperanza is the way that people refer to this, because I think Tropical Americas just sounds so, like, unexciting. I don't know. That description just doesn't do it for me.
It's gonna be weird though because Harambe is all Harambe, and they've got this weird juxtaposition of Indiana Jones and Encanto all in the same area. I think the concept art looks beautiful, but this is another one of those instances where I think thematically they can probably make it fit, but an animated cartoon set in, what was that, Colombia? I think, and then you've
Yeah.
got Indiana Jones where the old dinosaur ride was. I don't know. I don't know that those fit together.
Well, I do think that if they go with this, like, Mayan temple kind of, it can work. Like, if they transition from, like, a city into the jungle of, like, the rainforest, it could work. And it does, like, from the concept art. I agree. I think it looks beautiful. And honestly, what I'm really excited about, I am excited about this, like, new city that they're building, where, because when the first time I ever went to Animal Kingdom, like, I just remember walking into Harambe and feeling like it was so cool how they, like, kind of recreated this village, and it felt like Disney authentic, like, it's not really authentic, but it's like the Disney type of authentic, where they do go and they have these artisans come and craft things, and so they, like, create a kind of like a amalgamation of all of these, like, different authentic bits to create something. And I really hope, like, it sounds like from the how he described it and from the concept art, that that's what this Pueblo Esperanza is going to be, very authentic, like Spanish style architecture. with retheming restaurants to fit into that theme. So I'm excited for that. I think it'll look pretty, and it'll be kind of, you know, I know you rolled your eyes at me, Phil, when we were talking about for Clubhouse weekend that we're going to Animal Kingdom and we're gonna kind of like eat and drink around Animal Kingdom the way that you would around World Showcase. But I feel like this gives you like Dino Land USA didn't really lend itself to that because it was, very like kitschy. It was like a camp, but this is going to be just like another kind of recreation, like a Disney authentic type of creation, which I'm excited for.
I'm excited for it. I'm definitely excited to see how it's going to look because it does look beautiful. But I'm with you. I don't like the name. I don't even know. I can't even say it without cringing. Like I'm like,
What, Tropical
I'm
Americas?
probably gonna call it something else, and I don't even know what it is yet.
Well, I do think that it kind of like Phil, I think because you are right, like they took these two different concepts and they needed to make it fit into one theme. So just calling it Tropical Americas. And, I guess they didn't want to call it like the rainforest or whatever. Like they needed it to be somewhat kind of like geographic reference, maybe to fit in with having Africa and Asia.
I'm of two minds on this, and I think you just touched on it. I think they have the opportunity to make it completely immersive and absolutely beautiful. I don't mind the two IPs, though I don't know, the description of the Encanto attraction seems a little underwhelming to me for what it is compared to what Indy could be. I think it fits in Animal Kingdom, and I don't dislike Animal Kingdom. I just can't spend any length of time there without wanting to leave. That's really what it comes down to. My biggest problem, and maybe it comes back to my saltiness, they're just cramming what they can for popular IPs together, and I just don't think it fits. I feel like that's what we're missing in almost not all of these, but a lot of these is a lack of continuity that years ago would never have been accepted or they would have figured out a way to do it. I think they really need to try and capitalize on that overarching theme of the new land and then kind of hope people look past the details. Because let's be honest, you walk over there, I mean, you've got a Nemo building that's off to one side, you've got a kitschy dinosaur shop that's around the corner after you came out of Asia. There's some continuity problems to begin with, but I think these two IPs in particular being potentially side by side, I think there's an issue there. But I think if done right with the proper amount of attention, it could be absolutely gorgeous and it would finally start bringing people to that side of the park and make it worth visiting. And it would allow them to expand that park. It would certainly make that park a lot better for a full day. I think based on the concept art at night, it's going to be absolutely stunning. So we'll see how it works out. I mean, like anything, there's going to be good and bad. I have high hopes for this, but a couple of questions.
I think that you hit on something that I think has kind of become like it's kind of the theme for me overall in the direction that Disney has been going over the past several years is the emphasis on IP is so strong. Whereas the emphasis used to be on creating an experience that was somewhat authentic and unique. And it didn't matter if it was tied into IP. And in fact, most of it was unique. It created for the parks. When you look at, it was Countdown to Extinction when it first opened, like that whole concept was unique to the parks. It was not based on IP. Nothing in Animal Kingdom was really, other than, it's tough to be a bug. But even that, it wasn't like they were creating this whole area based on IP. It was just a movie inside the Tree of Life. Now everything is so focused on IP that we're losing kind of like like land. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, put a pin in that because I'm going to attack this hard later.
oh, well, yeah, I know. So, like, the concept of having a land, like a themed land that then have attractions that are themed to that theme is kind of going away.
It's a theme park, not an IP park, not an let's cram more rides in for the sake of having more rides. It's a theme park. And that's what brought people back time and time and time again. And they've lost sight of that.
And the one thing I want to touch on something else you said that I don't know that I fully agree with, that it's going to do the job of making Animal Kingdom more than a half day park, or like make people stay longer, because they're really only adding one ride. They're replacing a ride and then they're adding a ride. So it's really only, and I don't know, like if it's just that maybe that the new like the Indiana Jones attraction will appeal to more people than Dinosaur did, because Dinosaur was like a little scary for kids, and some people didn't like it. So maybe Indiana Jones will have a broader appeal, but you're really only replacing a ride that has the same ride technology, and then you're adding the Encanto ride. So, I mean, maybe we'll see how long the Encanto ride is. Like, hopefully it's lengthy enough that it absorbs a lot of people and it keeps them occupied for longer than what is in Dino Land USA. Because, pretty much people walk through Dino Land USA to go to Dinosaur and then walk back out. So, I mean, hopefully people will kind of linger in that area of the park longer.
There
And
it
that
is, I
might
think.
be.
Yeah, so we just went right back to what I said. It's not all about rides. Rides will keep people in the park for as long as it takes to go on the ride. What this is doing is opening up a section of the park that is completely underutilized right now. Dinosaur is so buried in the back that I'll guarantee you 20% of the people that go into Animal Kingdom have no idea it's even back there, nor how to access it through those little tiny cut-throughs around Dino Land or through that weird meet and greet they've got. But right now, if you could tell me anything in Animal Kingdom that is truly worth sticking around for at night, I would be shocked. They've never had good luck with nighttime shows, and I get they can't do fireworks and they can't have loud bangs. The animals, I understand that completely. Rivers of Light was an abject failure. I had such high hopes for it, and they've got such a beautiful setting there with the water and all of the stadium seating around it. You walk through Harambe, and at night, it's just not the same. You don't get the same ambiance at night as you do during the day. It doesn't give you the same feeling. Rafiki's Planet Watch is closed down. You don't want to take the train all the way up there to do a petting zoo where the animals aren't out. Asia is okay. It's the only part of the park that really has any life at night. What you're doing,
Pandora.
I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. You're right. Pandora does. But to that point, people have started staying around at night specifically because Pandora is so beautiful. And you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
I didn't think about Pandora, but that suddenly dragged people into the park at night because it was worth staying for. We talk about the ambiance of the park. We talk about the feeling you get walking through. Walking through this area at night based on the concept art, I think is going to be absolutely beautiful. I think it finally gives people a reason to get over there at night, and it opens up a whole new territory that they have not had before. So I don't think it's about the rides. I think it's about the experience of being in that part of the park and just soaking it all in and enjoying the lights. I mean, you look at the concept art, everything's softly lit. It is very light and colorful, but kind of subdued at the same time when you look at the nighttime art. I think it gives people another reason to actually go to Animal Kingdom at night or stay later that they didn't have before. They're replacing one ride, but in reality, they're retheming an entire new area. And I think that's going to drag people in.
Well, you know, right now I think Animal Kingdom closes at 6 o'clock. I mean, lately it's closed before it even gets dark. So it's very hard to even see Pandora at night anymore. I mean, we have before, but I couldn't tell you the last time that we were able to do that because of what time the parks closes.
But I guarantee you that if people were trying to flood into that park at night
Mhm.
and buy food and buy merch, they would keep it open a lot later. So they're closing it at night because they don't have the press of crowds trying to get through the gates. It just doesn't make sense from a staffing standpoint.
Well, and hopefully the restaurant that they're going to add there is table service, and hopefully it's excellent, because dining is a reason why people will stick around. People stick around because they have an advanced dining reservation. And right now, what are the options? Tiffin's and Yak and Yeti? Those are the only two that you can.
Oh no, 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 no! This would be an excellent opportunity for a third rainforest cafe.
I don't even count Rainforest Cafe because it's literally outside of the entrance. It's like not even in the park. It's at the entrance to the park. So I always forget that. But I think that, if they had a great restaurant there, and to your point, Phil, like when you think about Mexico, when you think about that restaurant, people love eating in there, not because of the food, but
That's for
because of
sure.
the ambiance. They love that ambiance. And if they can create something over there that has an ambiance that makes people feel transported, people will want to eat there. And if they have some great entertainment, like some live music, which, hopefully they do because Encanto has great music. So hopefully there's, like they bring music into the theming. It could be really like a place where people would want to linger. And you're right. Like I do like lingering at Harambe, but I like lingering there during the day. I'm never lingering in Harambe at nighttime. So give me a place, and for as cool as Pandora looks at nighttime, there's no place to like hang out there. It's just all
Mm-mm.
walking
No, and it's
paths.
tiny. It's a
Yeah.
quick walkthrough to see all the bioluminescence.
Yeah. So you're right. Like lingering in the park and giving me a reason to stay at nighttime. Hopefully that is something that is that this new land does for Animal Kingdom.
You just sparked something in my mind. Think of this restaurant and a cross between Mariachi Cobre and Blue Bayou in Disneyland. You would not be able to get a reservation in there.
It's so true. And I mean, and hopefully they know that. Hopefully they know that people will stick around for dining. I mean, I think Tiffin's has really good food, and it's probably by way of table service restaurants in the theme parks. It's at the top of the list. Like, I don't know if it's number one, but it's definitely at the top of the list for me. But it just doesn't really like immerse itself into any real theme. It's like Tiffin's is kind of in a weird walkway also. Like that's a thoroughfare to get from Discovery Island to Pandora. And so it's not that exciting. It's not an exciting location to dine at from just like an ambiance standpoint.
And if you didn't know it was there, you'd walk right by it.
Completely. Honestly, like it kind of looks to me the way like the Odyssey looks in Epcot. You know what I mean? Like how like people would walk by it, maybe not so much recently because they've started doing festival stuff inside the Odyssey. But that was a place like when I was younger, I was always like, what is this place? I feel like people would like walk by Tiffin's and be like, what is this place? Like, because it's just very nondescript.
Yeah, Odyssey is just that weird, dilapidated structure off the path that for some reason is the only place that still has payphones, which fascinate my children. They have no idea what this payphone is we speak of.
All right. So any other thoughts on Animal Kingdom?
I don't have any.
Mm.
Do you?
No, I'm excited. I think it could be really cool. I mean, rest in peace, dinosaur. I know you're so sad about that, but
I like Dinosaur, and there's some nostalgia there, but Indian Disneyland is so much better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, then they went on to make some just kind of like reiterate some announcements they had already made, like a Zootopia movie coming to the Tree of Life, the Pirates Tavern coming in 2025. I was kind of excited about this Spaceship Earth Lounge that's going to be opening in 2025. The concept art looked pretty cool. So I think that, and I mean, do you think is that going into the space where you exit Spaceship Earth?
That's what my original thought was. Like when you get off Spaceship Earth, like that area where they have like all the pictures.
Yeah,
That's what I
because
was
that's
thinking.
that's kind of like dead space right now. That
Did you
used
say
to be where you could go
Pirates
to make your.
Tavern?
Yeah, that was one they actually announced a while back. My guess is that's going to go where Tortuga is now.
Hmm. That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking too.
As in drinking in Magic Kingdom?
Precisely.
I don't know that they haven't released a menu, so I don't know if it's going to actually have alcohol at it.
For the guy that hates drunks walking around the park, if you have a pirate-themed tavern in Adventureland and there's no alcohol being served, that is just a gross travesty of justice right there.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I like pirates, so something new.
Yeah, I like Pirates too. I hope they do a good job. I mean, you know what? The recurring theme for me with this is I think a lot of the ideas sound great. It's the execution that I need to see. Like execution is going to be key here. So, then they talked about new test track coming in 2025, which I think is great.
Super excited.
But then they got to another big announcement, which was the opening of Monstropolis at Hollywood Studios, which I did not see coming, but was very excited about it. I personally am very excited about this one.
Me too.
Is this for sure going in Animation Courtyard?
That's the rumor. I don't know if it's been confirmed, but that is what everyone is reporting.
Yeah, that is the rumor, and it made me have a thought. And I mean, this is totally a thought. Please, nobody who listens to this, repeat this as truth. But, they announced earlier last week that that Aerosmith is definitely going away from Rock and Roller Coaster, which made me wonder if they put Monstropolis in Animation Courtyard, is Rock and Roller Coaster, that part of that real estate, going to be where they are putting this new coaster?
Are you saying put the coaster in Rock and Roller Coaster or take over some of the land?
Just take over some of that land. Like, are they going to, like, is Rock and Roller Coaster going to go away completely, and then they're going to use some of that land, like that space over there? Because that does extend into, like, it's behind the buildings that are in the Animation Courtyard. So I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
That
I
was
mean,
just
they
a
have to have a 5-year plan, and they're dumping a lot of money into completely refurbishing Rock and Roller Coaster, and that's been confirmed. I don't
okay.
know if they would do a complete refurb of Rock and Roller Coaster only to raise it afterwards. I think we're
Yeah.
definitely looking at a new band. I'd be very curious to see what everyone thinks the new band should be because I've got my own thoughts on that, but I don't know that they would dump the money into Rock and Roller Coaster only to take it all down.
Will they theme it, like absorb that into Monstropolis, I wonder, and make that, because like Rock and Roller Coaster is kind of a random thing at the end of Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, but I mean, Monstropolis is probably what, 5 years away. You can't take Rock and Roller Coaster out of the rotation for that long. They've already got a crowd density problem and trying to fill with attractions. I
Yeah,
think they've
that's
got to
true.
get Rock and Roller Coaster back up and running while they're trying to build the rest of this because they're going to need somewhere to put those guests. And if Rock and Roller Coaster is down along with Animation Courtyard in an already crowded, landlocked park, I think they have big problems.
So I'm intrigued now. Who do you think what band do you think they're going to put there?
I don't know what I think they'll put in, but if I had to pick a band that I think is kind of timeless, I think Journey's got to go in there.
I was just gonna say Journey.
Maybe Bon Jovi.
That would be good.
I would happily take either one of them.
Yeah, those would be great. All right, so on to Monstropolis. Tell me your thoughts.
I'm super excited for that.
Because of the new theme or the new land, or just because of the roller coaster
But
itself?
all of it. Just all of it.
Yeah. I mean, first suspended coaster.
Hmm.
That's gonna be
That's
pretty cool.
exciting.
Very cool.
I also think I hope that it's going in the Animation Courtyard, because that's also like wasted real estate over there. I mean, that's a total dead part of the park.
Just an asphalt jungle. It's about 1 billion degrees with some mediocre character meet and greets.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about what we would do when we were doing what was that, the buy sell trade or whatever we did,
Exactly.
I think you, Phil, brought up something about Animation Courtyard, right?
Yeah, well, we talked about whether or not Guardians would fit, and we said that just the size of the building would not fit in Animation Courtyard. I think that park is a lot smaller than people give it credit for. It's really tiny as far as acreage goes. They'll have to cram it in, but if you think you've got Launch Bay back there plus Animation Courtyard, and does Ariel back up to that as well? So there's a lot of real estate there when you look at what is down at the moment and what is underutilized.
Well, I mean, if they, who knows, like if they get rid of Walt, one man's dream, get rid of the Little Mermaid, get rid of Playhouse Disney, if they get rid of all of that, or it's not Playhouse Disney anymore. I forget what it's called, but
Disney
that whole
Junior.
area, they have a big, they have a lot of space to work with over there if they get rid of all of that. And you know what? Hollywood Studios is kind of this like weird, like they got rid of the lands. It was conceived as a movie studio. It is not that anymore. But at least there is some continuity in terms of having it be Pixar, so that you've got Monsters Inc. and then you have Toy Story, which, to me, like for my taste, those are like the Pixar classics that I love and adore.
Counterpoint, and this is going to go into the larger theme. You already have a Monsters Inc. attraction in Magic Kingdom. You have a giant open building next door that's underutilized, and directly ahead of you is the Speedway, which everybody hates and does not eat enough people. I don't think this is the appropriate park for Monsters Inc. I think you could probably find the space in Magic Kingdom to put it there where it already exists. And it solves the problem of Tomorrowland no longer really being Tomorrowland. I mean, they lost sight of that in the 60s when they just could not update Tomorrowland quickly enough to stay ahead of what was happening. I would say, however, if you want to talk about classic Pixar movies, that allows you to put Cars over on the other side of Hollywood Studios. If you look at the way Disneyland is set up, bright neon, you've already got some of the higher overhead rocks for Galaxy's Edge. It wouldn't be out of place over there. I don't have a problem with any of the things they're bringing in. I would just shift parks. I think Cars belongs over in Hollywood Studios more than I think Monsters Inc. does. And I think Monsters Inc. would solve a lot of problems in Magic Kingdom, and it would allow you not to take over the part of Magic Kingdom that I am so salty about today.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you brought that up about Tomorrowland because this whole presentation and having Monsters Inc. open at Hollywood Studios has made me think about what future announcements they might make about Tomorrowland in Magic Kingdom. Because if you're going to have Monstropolis, it doesn't make sense to have the Monsters Inc. laugh floor in. I mean, it never made sense to have that in Tomorrowland anyway, but it makes even less sense now. And they kind of, and then they have Buzz Lightyear, which people love it, but it kind of like the more dated version of Toy Story Mania. And it always has a really long line. Like, I
And it
feel
still
like
smells like if you had wings.
you've got the Stitch's Great Escape building not being used, Tomorrowland. And because of, just we won't get into New Frontierland yet, but bringing Cars to Frontierland kind of makes Tomorrowland Speedway kind of like irrelevant. So I feel like all of this is laying the groundwork for potentially an announcement in upcoming years of a massive Tomorrowland overhaul.
Think about what's in Tomorrowland right now. Right, you walk in, you've got Monsters Inc. laugh floor to the right, which I know Scott loves. No disrespect there, buddy.
No, I love it, but I get now with all of this, I can totally see how it should be moved. And like what Amy said with the buzz ride, I mean, we've got a lot of rides that you could flip flop to a different park that would make a whole hell of a lot more sense.
Think about how amazing Tomorrowland would be if you had either all in with Monstropolis or moved Monsters Inc. laugh floor somewhere else. You've got that whole building to the left hand side. Straight ahead of you is the Speedway. You've got Space Mountain. You've got Tron right there. This could be the adrenaline, high energy, big lights, fast moving part of the park. And you could have the other side of the park that's more low key and the transition makes more sense. Right now, what do you really do in Tomorrowland? Maybe you go to Monsters Inc. laugh floor. The lunching pad stinks. You've got Cosmic Rays, which is okay. You've got a big empty building, and you've got the Speedway with that rat-a-tat-tat of the cars. And then behind it, you've got these two big coasters. Nothing flows. If you're going to tear something apart and put it back together, let it be that side of the park that so desperately needs the attention.
Yep.
Yeah, agreed. Like, I mean, I think that after this whole panel, I was like, Tomorrowland just feels like it's going to be just even less relevant in the Magic Kingdom than it is now. I mean, truly, the only reason why I step foot in Tomorrowland is for Space Mountain and for the one time that I rode Astro Orbiter with Phil and maybe People Mover.
Yeah, Astro Orbiter and People Mover. I mean, Astro Orbiter that's one of those. What is it really other than a nostalgic attraction? I guess it gives some kinetic energy to that side of the park. I don't have a problem with it, but you want to talk about low crowd, slow moving, 4 people at a time in an elevator to go up one half level. It's just awful.
Yeah. All right. Well, so since we have been kind of dancing around it, shall we talk about the biggest news? I think people probably are talking about today, which
Diz Twitter is all aflame.
is the changes happening in the other side of the park. So let's talk first about Villains Land, because I don't think that that's that controversial. We'll save the controversy for the end. But how do you guys feel about Villains Land coming to Beyond Thunder Mountain?
I think that was my favorite announcement. Definitely. I know it was Lily's favorite. She's been hoping for that one.
I mean, it makes sense. I'm glad it's not, we had talked about the fifth gate. I'm just glad it's an extension of Magic Kingdom, and I think it totally makes sense. I think a lot of people are going to be excited for it. They can do a lot with that.
And you could tie an awful lot of IP, which is their favorite, into a Villain's Land in Magic Kingdom because Magic Kingdom, because of all the different lands, is a catch-all. So you've got everything from pirates over to the stuff in Frontierland, Haunted Mansion, you've got Fantasyland, you could tie almost anything in there, and by putting it behind Big Thunder, you don't have any thematic integrity issues. It becomes its own thing. You could solve a lot of problems with crowd flow that kind of get lost back there in Frontierland where you dead end. I do know, having run backstage there, they're definitely going to have to redo an awful lot back there to make it work for crowd flow, because there's a lot of behind the scenes back of house stuff that happens back there. It's probably one of the most god awful smells I've ever encountered on a Run Disney event, because a lot of the garbage disposal goes back there, as well as I believe one of the sewage treatment facilities is back there. So they're going to have to
So
move
bad.
some stuff, we'll call it.
What I like about it is because it is kind of out of the way. It is talking about Stitch's Great Escape, like before, when it was originally Alien Encounter, which I absolutely loved, but it got criticism from people who didn't think that it was family friendly and that it was too scary. And I think, great, like, let's have Villains Land back here. Let's have some like scary, thrilling stuff that people with small kids, like, they don't have to enter into it if they don't want to, but those of us who want to be immersed in that kind of like. And I'm curious to see, because it looks like there's definitely going to be some sort of like Maleficent themed attraction, right?
It has to be. She has been their main villain in everything for the past 10 years. She's been the go-to, right?
Josh Tomorrow did say something like, "You poor unfortunate souls." So I think it would be very cool if there was a water-based like Ursula ride with Flotsam and Jetsam. Like, I think that would be, and I love Ursula. I think that she's like such a great villain. So I hope that Ursula gets some love there. And it would kind of make sense too, since you have a Little Mermaid attraction at the Magic Kingdom, to then have like the the counterpart to the villain counterpart to that ride, which that ride should be a water ride since they are all
No, we're
fish.
doing away with water on that side of the park. Get it out of your mind.
Oh
Oh.
boy. Oh boy.
So yeah. So I mean, I think I don't. It wasn't a huge shock to people. People were very excited. I mean, I think that the Villains Land got the loudest applause of the entire panel. So I mean, that definitely made people happy. The thing that is very controversial. Shall we get into it now? Does anybody have anything else to say about Villains Land?
I think people have
Oh,
been clamoring for Villains Land for years. I think it's an obvious hit. I think it's going to have a whole lot of people that are excited for it. I think it's in the perfect location. And by putting it behind Big Thunder, they pretty much have carte blanche. They can make it whatever they want, similar to how they put Galaxy's Edge in. Did it fit thematically with the backside of Toy Story Land? No, not even close. But by making them separate and not visible to each other, you make it its own land. That's no worse than, the hub going into Adventureland. It's a jarring juxtaposition, but it's okay because they're separate. I think this is a winner, hands down. I have no problem with it. I think it's going to be a giant score for them. And when you consider what Epic Universe is putting in, I mean, they've got a lounge where you're supposed to be able to go in and actually interact with Dracula's familiars. I mean, that's going to be so cool, and they can kind of take some of that crowd away from Universal and the haunted houses and the way Universal really plays to that crowd. I think Disney is very cognizant of that, and they're trying to draw some of those people back in. So I don't see any way this can lose.
Well, and also when you think about Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, I wonder what they'll do in that part of the park on those nights. Like, that also gives them the opportunity to do something a little bit less family friendly and more kind of in line with. I don't think that they'll go as quite as far as Universal does, but it will nudge them a little bit more in that direction, which would be appealing for more people, I think. And honestly would get me to go to that party if at least once, to go again.
Oh, for sure.
Completely agree.
So all right, let's talk about it,
Let's dive
guys.
into it.
New Frontierland.
We're not calling it Frontierland anymore. You
I
can't
know.
even call it New Frontierland.
I know. It's old Frontierland. So they announced at D23 that they're going to be adding 2 Cars attractions to Frontierland. They confirmed today that they are putting them where Tom Sawyer Island is and Rivers of America. So they are essentially going to drain all of that water out of there and put 2 new attractions in that space.
I don't know whether I'm more heartbroken or irate, and I say that in all honesty. I have been saying for a couple of years now that I did not like the direction we were going in. I honestly had a conversation with my wife today that said if they do this, I might start thinking differently. And it's not just the removal of the rivers, it's what it stands for. It is maximizing every square inch of property. It is, in my opinion, tearing the soul out of that side of the park. It is taking something that was beautiful and relaxing and spoke to what that side of the park was and turning it into a stretch of concrete in order to cram in 2 new attractions that are full of IP. I like Cars. I said Disneyland, Cars Land is probably my favorite part of that park. It is absolutely gorgeous. It was one of my favorite things to stare out at night from our room when we were staying at Grand Californian and look over there and see the neon. It's immersive, it's fun, it's classy. It just doesn't belong there. That's all I can say. I think that when it really comes down to it, they have lost sight of what brings people back generation after generation. And it is not the newest ride. The newest ride is what brings people back this year. And it's typical corporate thought where it's just executives trying to make their numbers look good for the next 5 years so they can move on and they leave the path of devastation behind them for the next person to pick up. People are not going to come back again and again, year after year, for generations because of a Cars ride. They are going to come back because of the way they felt walking through that side of the park. What we feel and that atmosphere and that ambiance and it being so much classier and better than every other park is what brings us back. Turning that into concrete with new rides is not going to endear people to the Disney difference and the Disney feeling and all the feels they get walking through. They're just going to wait on the next big ride and the next big ride and the next big ride. And I think that is, in my opinion, losing sight of what has made Disney so different for years. From opening Disneyland to opening Walt Disney World to opening Epcot, it was about amazing experiences. It was about immersing yourself in the experiences that Disney had to offer. It was about technical innovation. It was about establishing that you were safe within the bubble and everything outside didn't exist. And now it's just about the new e-ticket and what kind of ticket sales we can have a year from now or 2 years from now so we can keep improving our bottom line. And I just don't think that's the Disney that I grew up with and fell in love with. And that's really what's got me so heartbroken right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of 2 minds. When they initially announced the 2 Cars attractions, I was excited. And when we did our episode of Buy, Trade, and Sell, I actually talked about I hope that they bring Radiator Springs to the area beyond Big Thunder Mountain. When it was confirmed that they are getting rid of that whole section of the park that is just so charming and so scenic, like it made me feel very sad because I feel like there is a even though I've never been over to Tom Sawyer Island, like that part of the park just is iconic. And when you think about in Disneyland, where, they actually have a Fantasmic is on like the water in Disneyland. Like it
On
is
Tom
such a
Sawyer Island.
yeah, and it's a focal point of that park. And it's different in Disney World because of like the different size and the space that was available, but it's like it was like kind of jarring to hear that. Now, what I said before, this is where, I really stand by this, is the execution of this needs to be phenomenal. In order for there to be like something over there that feels like it is, I don't know, an experience that can feel like it's going to tug at my heartstrings, because it is replacing something, because it's not just like it's not about going there. Like you're right. It's about like the way that you feel and walking along that walkway when when you're walking from Haunted Mansion down to Splash Mountain and you have the water on the right. Like that is the people like us who've been there a lot, that there's like a footbridge so that you don't have to walk on the main path and you can like scooch over there. And I must take pictures from that bridge every single time I'm there because I love the way it looks and it's so pretty. I am excited to get those attractions. I do think that the wildest thing is just the Magic Kingdom will always be the most popular park. And so many people are going into this park. So it's not a terrible thing to be having more attractions that are going to be dispersing people so that maybe it will end up helping the lines because the lines are just they're so long. The conversation about Lightning Lane and all of this, like, we don't have time to get into that. That probably adds to some of the problem, but at least this will help to disperse some of the crowd.
I think you're assuming the crowd will be the same, though. Keep that in mind. If they take that underutilized landscape and they pave it over and they add another few square acres over there, they will cram another 5 to 10,000 people in the park to make use of that space. So the crowds are not going to decrease, I don't think. They're just going to be able to put more people on the ground where previously they couldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Kathleen and Scott, what do you guys think?
Go for it.
Go ahead.
No, I said on a previous episode that that's what makes Disney special. You guys talked about, the way that you feel. It just it doesn't necessarily matter if you have the best ride or the newest ride. What keeps people coming back to Disney is the feeling, the nostalgia, the memories. That part of it I know is the correct answer, but honestly, the other part of me, and it sounds mean, but I just don't give a about Tom Sawyer Island.
To be clear, now I'm going to throw it out there, and I said in multiple posts today, I don't care about Tom Sawyer Island. I think, we take the kids over there because you can. Scott, you and I agreed. If you wanted to do something with Tiana, put her out there, give her the whole island. I am not wedded to Tom Sawyer Island or the Tom Sawyer in general or the history of Walt and Tom Nabby as Tom Sawyer. I think it's cool history, but that can change. I think they're altering the landscape. If you read John Hench's books, he talks about how everything plays into the way people feel. It's the colors, it's the sights, it's the intangibles. And as the architect of all of these parks, he was still there as a consultant all the way into the late 80s and early 90s. They looked to him to give it that Disney feel. John Hench is the reason that we all feel the way we do, the smells, the sights, the colors, how they all work together. Yeah. When they asked John Hench what he thought about DCA, he said, I liked it better as a parking lot. That gives you an idea of what John Hench thought. But John Hench is the one that designed all of this that has given us the feels for 3 generations. And if he thought DCA was better at a parking lot, what would he think about paving over Rivers of America to put a Cars Land in? And I think that's what I come back to. You can have Tom Sawyer Island, turn it into whatever you want, but to alter that whole landscape and turn it into a concrete jungle and all pavement, I think that's the problem I have. Everyone's focusing on the island. I'm more focused on what that side of the park looks like and feels like.
Yeah, I'm not sad about the island. I'm sad about the water, the riverboat. Like that is it. It created. We talked before about Animal Kingdom about them creating ambiance on that side of the park that would make people linger. How many times have I sat on a rocking chair in Frontierland just staring out at, the passersby. You've got the water in the background, you've got the island in the background, there's trees. Like, this is no longer going to be a place to linger. This is going to be a place to go. It's like a destination now. Like, you're going there to ride the rides and then you're going to move on. Unless they do create some ambiance there that will make people linger. And I hope that they do. I mean, that is my hope. And I'm hoping, when you look at the concept art, it does look like there's a lot of greenery, but I can't help but like see the irony of, in Cars, them talking about the fact that they built a highway that made, Route 66 obsolete, because they paved this big highway to accommodate more people, and then Route 66, the businesses were closing, and it became forgotten.
They did away with the past to make room for the future.
Yeah, and it's kind of feels like, man, Disney, like, you're literally taking a movie that's about what you're doing, like, and putting it there. It's like, oh, yikes.
Not just that, I feel bad I keep stepping on everyone because I'm so passionate about this particular subject. The interesting thing to me is when Universal opened, everyone was screaming about how it was just rides. There was no ambiance, there was no immersion. And as Universal continues to grow, they're more about the immersion and the ambiance. And Disney is going in the opposite direction now, back to just being rides and less ambiance. And somehow they're going in opposite directions. And they're now becoming that which they made fun of Universal for at the very beginning. I don't know. Kathleen, you let Scott go first. What are your thoughts?
I actually like Tom Sawyer Island, so I think it's pretty cute.
You do give a
I do. I like it. I like the riverboat too. It is a pretty area over there. It's definitely going to be weird walking, like you were mentioning, that little walkway on the side with the bridge. I mean, we always walk on that. It's going to be weird not seeing that, not seeing the water. I don't know how Cars fits over there though. I've never been to Disneyland, so I've never seen that before, but
When you think about Frontierland, you think about personal automobiles and internal combustion engines, right?
I
well,
just I don't
that's
know.
funny, because Allie said to me, like, when I told Allie, she was like, that makes no sense. She's like, from a time perspective, she's like, Frontierland, there were no cars. Like, there were no cars that in existence
Yeah,
during the time of like
that's
the frontier. It was covered wagons.
Mark my words, Frontierland is going and Liberty Square is next. Mark my
I
words.
was going to say, how is that going to work? It's right there. I don't
Well,
know.
I was thinking about, even when you're standing in line for Haunted Mansion and you are like looking
Mhm.
out over the water, and it kind of adds to like the eeriness even of like Haunted Mansion. But you're gonna be standing at Haunted Mansion and see like red rocks, like I don't, I don't know. But again, I need to see the execution, and maybe they'll nail it and I'll love it, or maybe we'll just forever have a sadness in our hearts over what was, you know. It feels like, I think that everyone's shocked, because for as much as everyone in the Disney fandom has talked about what they could do with Tom Sawyer Island, literally no one was like, well, maybe they could just get rid of the river and the island and just put a whole new attraction there. Like, literally nobody ever thought that, except for whoever the Imagineers were that came up with this idea. I think that like today, people like were shocked by this news, because no one ever thought that they would do something so drastic to such an iconic part of the original park. Like, I think that's like the thing that's like crazy to me. It would be, imagine if like one day they were like, you know what? We're going to drain World Showcase Lagoon and put some more countries in the middle. People would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Because it's the ambiance. It's like the
Mhm.
ability to linger, like World Showcase is not about rides at all, but it is one of the most popular parts of Walt Disney World, because people can sit and linger and take their time and take it in and feel like they're outside and looking at something scenic while being in a theme park, like I don't know.
I'd like to say Scott's been quiet, but I think I just haven't shut up long enough for him to get a word in edgewise.
No, I don't. I was not as passionate about it. I knew you were, Phil, and I don't really. I'm gonna just kind of reserve judgment until I actually see the execution, like Amy said. I'm not upset about it. Like I said, Tom Sawyer Island. I get what you guys are saying about completely retheming that whole area, but I'm certainly not as passionate about it as I think some people are. But I mean, it's Disney. I don't think they're going to completely mess everything up. But as I sit here and I listen to everybody talk, I don't know. I think it's just a different group of people going to Disney. Like the younger people going to Disney now, they just don't care about what we're talking about right now. And it is all about the newest, latest, greatest ride. People get excited about that. And I just feel like it's a different generation. And maybe that nostalgia, that feeling that you get just isn't quite as important as what it once was when we were kids, maybe. And I don't know, I think that has a lot to do with it too. And that's an unfortunate thing. It's not something that I think anybody should be like, oh, that's just the way things are. I just think that's, the way the world is kind of going right now. And it's all about trying to get more people in and trying to make more money and, what's going to be the biggest and the best. And I mean, dare I say it, Disney just sounds like kind of like Universal sometimes to me.
And Universal, with all their new offerings, is starting to sound more and more like the Disney of old. If you look at everything they've talked about with Harry Potter and now Epic Universe, it's all about the immersion. They keep talking about these lands and how immersed you're going to be. I just can't get over the fact that it seems like Universal is now speaking to the values we treasure more than Disney is.
I don't agree with that though, because I think Epic Universe is a bunch of lands themed around IP. It's not like an overarching theme. You've got Harry Potter, you've got Super Mario Brothers, you've got How to Train a Dragon. Like those are very specific IP. That doesn't feel like, and I think I'm in the minority because I'm just not as excited about Epic Universe as many people are. So, I don't think that I don't think that they're doing things the way Disney used to do them. I just think that they have been moving swiftly where Disney has been dragging their feet. I think that's the difference for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the fly-throughs. I don't love the IP that's over there. It's not speaking to me. I'm not super excited about it. It's not my thing. But it certainly seems that they're moving in opposite directions, which means that instead of their paths diverging, they're converging. And they're taking a page out of Disney's book to be a generational park. And Disney is taking a page out of the original Universal book to be the latest, newest, greatest thrill and ride. I just see them closing in on each other very swiftly.
I think that there's also something to consider is like, you hear talk about how Disney has been losing a lot of talent to Universal. I also wonder if a lot of the things that they are doing with the hopes of like luring people back. You know, Disney has been kind of stagnant for a while. And so I think as like an Imagineer, like, if the only excitement is the fact that, we talked about this on the last episode with the merch, like the only excitement is what Mickey and Minnie are wearing and what snacks you can get. That's not an exciting place for a creative type who wants to be building attractions and lands to be working. So maybe part of this also is to say like, hey, we are giving, our people an opportunity to put their talents to use. I don't know.
Yeah, again, I don't have any problems with any of the individual attractions or offerings that they announced. But I called it Saturday. I said, I don't like where they're putting things. I think it all comes down to execution. I think it needs to be superb. But I drew a hard line in the sand today when they released that concept art that showed Frontierland and the Rivers of America paved over. I like all of the individual pieces as individual pieces. It's just not in the right places.
I had a conversation last night with a family member about where that leaves us for like the potential of a fifth gate because Disney has become so IP heavy. Even overseas, like in the overseas parks, like it is very IP heavy. What could they possibly theme a fifth gate that would make sense at this point when it seems like the Disney of the present and the future is building lands based on IP. If they were to ever bring the world of Frozen or, a more immersive, like Tangled themed area to Walt Disney World, that's just to me, it's like stuff that would probably belong in Magic Kingdom. Like I just don't know what opportunity there is for a fifth gate based on because in if you would have asked me 5 years ago, like we've talked about like we would love if they did something that was like Tokyo Disney Sea. But that is like to your point, Phil, it's kind of like the Disney of the past where they pick a theme and then they build stuff to go with the theme. Now it's all IP based. They're not picking a theme, they're picking an IP to expand upon. Like World of Frozen looks amazing, but it's literally based on one movie.
The only theme now is the Walt Disney Company.
There's a serious lack of creativity, is what I'm thinking. I mean, it's you just do the same thing over and over again. I mean, what did we hear? Frozen 3, Toy Story 26. I mean,
Moana 2.
they just
Zootopia
do the
2.
same. Yeah, it's the same thing over and over again. And I mean, where's the creativity to develop something new?
Well, not even the sequels. It gets worse than that. I mean, they've already greenlit Inside Out 3. We have Moana 2. What about the fact that we are now just remaking classics? We're just going to turn it live action. We're not actually going to come up with a
Hmm.
new story. Sequels at least require some writing. They're now just pumping out live action remakes of animated classics and calling it a movie. Talk about a lack of imagination.
Right.
But Scott, I think that you said it earlier when you said that it's the generation that they're appealing to. I think it's different. I don't know that it's necessarily a lack of imagination from the creative standpoint. I think it's from what people want. And as we have seen in the DVC resorts, people are happy when the resorts actually lose the theming in the bedrooms, like in the actual units. And people are thrilled when they are starting to add more IP into the DVC units. So, I mean, Disney is kind of just giving people what they want, I guess. It's not what we want, but it is kind of like this like newer generation of Disney fans. They want the IP.
I don't know. I think
Yeah.
maybe, when I look at how I feel about this, maybe Scott's right. Maybe I'm not Disney's customer anymore. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. Time moves on. Maybe I have not, but I'm going to vote with my pocketbook. And if I'm not their fan anymore and they're not putting up things that I enjoy, then I'm not going to spend my money there. And that's just the way it works.
And you know what's so interesting to me is that I feel like Disney Cruise Line is actually like kind of hitting it out of the park. Like they are doing a lot of IP based stuff, but I think that they are doing it in a way that is it's creative and people love. Like when I went
Classy
on the
is the word
Wish
you're
and they
looking for.
yeah, like I love it. I think what's happening at DCL is some really great stuff. There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect to me in execution on DCL versus Walt Disney World.
It's funny because a lot of the commentary I saw today were people talking about how disappointed they were in this and in some of the Disneyland announcements. And a great number of them said we're just going to spend more money on Disney Cruise Line. So I'm not a cruise guy, but maybe I'm the cruise demographic. Maybe they know something internally that we don't. But a number of people today talked about how their park plans in the next 5 years are going to change more towards cruise plans.
Which I mean, I think that Disney probably sees that. They're definitely not introducing all of these ships to the fleet just for fun. They know that there's the demand and people love the product because they are doing an exceptional job. Like even the Disney Destiny, they are while one of everything is themed. Like they have like a Doctor Strange, I think themed bar, a Cruella Deville themed bar, but they do theming right because it's not like in your face. It's like in the spirit of those things, but so tastefully done where it makes sense on a cruise ship. Other than like the Haunted Mansion or the Hyperspace Lounge. Like those are like super immersive, but that's like a kind of fun nod to the Disney World fans, that are to be able to have those experiences, but they have that. My favorite lounge on the Wish was the Rose, themed after Beauty and the Beast, but it is so tastefully done. Like you need to be looking for it to know that that's what it is. You know what I mean?
Well, that's theming versus IP in your face, right? That's
Right.
Polynesian and Wilderness Lodge and Grand Floridian. That is theming. IP in your face
Versus like art
is
of animation.
art of animation, or even, I'm going to say it, The Incredibles splashed all over the rooms in the Contemporary because they didn't know what else to do with it. Theming is one thing. They are theme parks. They have themed resorts. And then there's IP everywhere, just a glut of it vomiting everywhere in your lap as you're walking through the resort. I think it's just two different demographics, two different customer bases, and two different ways of thinking.
Yeah,
But we hit an
I'd
hour
be
and a quarter
interested
really
to
quick, didn't
know.
we?
What'd you say?
We hit an hour and a quarter really quick, didn't we?
We sure did. This was a big announcement. So, um, I just one final thought is like I would be very curious to see the difference between the DCL demographics and the Disney World demographic. Where's the overlap? You know what I mean? Like I'd like to see like a Venn diagram of the demographics. Because I'm definitely a person who is moving more towards DCL. You know, like I am very excited about the Disney Cruise Line announcements. I'm thrilled that they're adding more ships because I think it adds excitement to your cruise vacations to be able to go on a different ship and experience each one. I don't really go into the parks that much when I go to Disney World, so it's kind of like that ship has sailed for me. No pun intended. No,
But
that pun was totally intended.
But
So,
Scott and
any final
Kathleen,
thoughts
since
here?
Amy and I, have just dominated this conversation with our blathering. Any last thoughts from you guys?
No, I think you guys have said it all. I mean, it's, I think some people are going to be happy about it. And then some of us, with a little bit of history there are going to be sad about the nostalgia kind of leaving the park a little bit. I don't know. Maybe if they ever do a fifth gate, maybe that's what it needs to be, like a nostalgia past rides of Disney, and just break it up into different parts of, can you imagine all the rides that they've parted ways with over the years, just making a comeback at one big park? I think some people would just go nuts for that. Not just the rides, but just recreating the whole theming of it.
Everyone keeps talking about nostalgia, and I need to be really clear about that. This is not nostalgia. This is not, I remember that one time I was 6 and looked out over rivers of America. This is not, they need to demolish half of Epcot and bring back Horizons. It's not specific memories and nostalgia and an unwillingness to part with the past that's got me so emotional about this. It's what I think is just simply a change in values and a change in the way Disney always expected more of themselves. And I don't think it's the same thought process with Disney now. It's not nostalgia as much as a change in how they plan their parks and how they always need to be better than the next guy in theming, in thematic integrity, in how it wasn't always about the rides. It was more about the experience. And I think that's what's really got me crossed up here.
Well, I
Yeah.
do think that it feels like Disney has been very reactive. They're reacting to Universal, they're reacting to their fans' reactions to Universal, they're reacting to their fans' reactions to how slow things are going. They're reacting to the fact that we were all pissed last year after D23 when they dangled nothing but ideas, and now I think that they're just like, we need to do something, so let's just do it. And they just kind of like took all of these blue sky ideas that they dangled and were like, let's do the ones that people seem to have a positive reaction to and run with it. Because really, the only thing that really caught me by total surprise was Monstropolis. The other things I felt like are things that have been dangled out there, Then, what really surprised me is that then today was how they're going to demolish that whole area of the park. Like that was surprising to me. But I think that I kind of feel like they've lost the vision. There's not a greater vision anymore. And maybe that's what similar to what you're saying, Phil, in terms of values. Like, in order to have a vision, you need to be led by your values and by what you want to provide to your customers, to your guests. And it just feels like they're being very reactive to try to get people to be excited so they can muster up some excitement, because I think Epic Universe has kind of rattled them. I think that this kind of like hodgepodge of stuff that they announced at D23 for me kind of shows like they're showing their cards a little to me, and I think that they're definitely feeling threatened by people's reactions to Epic Universe.
You just
They
said it.
knew they had to announce something.
I have been part of the formation of numerous organizations, and every organization starts by establishing a vision statement. But in order to establish a vision statement, you have a list of values, and your list of values is what that vision statement is founded upon. And I have been through that process numerous times. I think Disney needs to go back to the drawing board, list their values, and come up with their vision, because they've lost sight of all of them.
Hmm. I don't disagree with that. I mean, I don't feel quite as strongly as you do in terms of feeling like this could be like a make it or break it for me. But like I said, I mean, I definitely see myself feeling more intrigued by Disney Cruise Line because I think they're doing something right and it's exciting and it's fun to be a part of that.
Okay,
So,
Scott, Kathleen, I swear we're going to let you have the last word. Go ahead.
No, you guys are doing a great job. I said what I had to say. You're either gonna love it, you're gonna hate it, but I'm gonna reserve judgment until I actually see it.
I think one of the biggest concerns I have is, over at Hollywood Studios, like right now, it's a pretty packed park. I mean, we don't go often because it's so packed. And then with this new thing coming in, I just think it's going to be even more packed because I think that's a big thing that they're going to be putting there. And I think it's going to attract a lot of people. So that little park, I don't know. I still think it's still going to be even more packed. I don't know how they're going to police that or control that to make it, when the parks are that packed, it's not enjoyable to me, at least. I don't want to go, but I'm still excited for it. It's like my second thing I'm excited for.
All right. Well, before Amy and I continue on, because I could do this for another hour, we thank you guys for listening along. I would love to see some of the comments once we post this next week to hear what everyone has to say about this. And I know reaction will be split. I promise you, I will not be quiet in my opinions, as I have not been quiet over the last 12 hours. But thank you for playing along. If you guys could head over to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. We'll continue using this as a platform to complain about Disney. Amy?
and if you'd like to complain and rant with us on Facebook, you can find us there at DVC Clubhouse. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And until next time, we'll DVC you real soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
And so our journey comes to an end.
Oh, no, please, can't we go back to page 1 and do it all over again?
Started this thing together, and that's how we'll finish it.
Because that, my friends, is where the magic lives.